A thread by Carlos Osuita. Alana Elric, or Deadpool 4 King, tweets, "Trust the Trump. Did I just enter the cult section of Twitter?" And, "Calm down, trust the Trump. As he said, what have you got to lose? You got to admit how fucking culty that sounds." For Deadpool for King. More evidence that Donald Trump and the GOP will be reelected handily, if not in landslide victories. Every day, leftists do something else that guarantees Trump's reelection. Let's look at just a few stories. Black Lives Matter protesters subject Black police officers to racist abuse on a level that's hard to believe. Black Lives Matter protesters walk away in contempt when Black police officers try to engage them in dialogue. Black Lives Matter protesters burn down Black-owned businesses. Black Lives Matter protesters demand that commemoration of abolitionists be forbidden. Black Lives Matter protesters ignore the killing fields of Chicago, where Black children and families are murdered violently. But now Black Lives Matters has decided to call rationality a cult. Let's see if people can tell the difference. Trust Trump, trust the Trump. Only one of these images, one of these statements conjures up imagery such as this. Lenin Gil, Lenin Jiv, Lenin Budet Jit. Lenin lived, Lenin lives, Lenin will live on. The other one makes us think this. See the difference? By putting in the, we acknowledge that our president is no supreme leader. We're actually mocking the notion of a supreme leader. Trust the Trump is funny because it's a joke that only people with a sense of humor understand. We all know how serious this is, but we must be like Spartans. At Thermopylae, when Persian King Xerxes warned that his men would fire so many arrows that they'd blot out the sun, Spartan warrior Dienekes said this, "Good, then we'll fight in the shade instead of the hot sun." And Trump is a Spartan. It's Trump against the globe, and he laughs. We laugh with him. Therefore, we say trust the Trump, not trust Trump. If you can't see the difference, you have no sense of humor. In World War I, a British trench came under massive German artillery bombardment. Shell shock comes from the horrendous PTSD that artillery caused. Young draftees started panicking, screaming, and cowering. A middle-aged draftee took over. He'd been a fruit peddler before he was drafted. In those days, British fruit peddlers sang. So this middle-aged draftee stood up and began singing at the top of his lungs. "Ooh, wants me coconuts, me loverly coconuts. They make you wanna jump into the sky, aye. Ooh, wants apricots, me ooshy scooshy apricots. Me never ever seen the bloomin' okie. As he sang, he danced. All the hysterical kids started laughing. Then they clapped in time. He got them to sing in time, and soon the whole company was singing. The song was passed from man to man. When the shelling stopped, the Germans could hear them roaring out the song. The fruit peddler was decorated for valor. Even the upper class officers had joined in. I can say I'm a middle-aged fruit peddler under fire and a laughing Spartan. I'm not even slightly afraid. Looks like they broke up the thread. I can figure this out. Here's another accusation. Also, how does believing that Black Lives Matter make me insane? Lady, that's fucking racist. I'm a lady now. Why not? Lady Carlos. The point is that Black Lives Matter doesn't care in the slightest about Black lives. It cares only selectively about Black deaths. The insanity of Black Lives Matter is that it opens the doors to real racism. Black Lives Matter says that all people with a particular skin color are deficient. How is this different from what the Ku Klux Klan says? The argument that marginalized groups can't be racist is a totally Orwellian redefinition of the word racism. Racism has only one definition: a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce inherent superiority and inferiority of particular races. Leftists created the mother of all tiger pits for themselves, and then they swan dived into it. They say that all definitions are social constructs that are invalid. There's no such thing as objective reality. All of us get to determine who and what we are. Since all labels are invalid, this makes the concepts of systemic racism and institutionalized racism non-existent. They're social constructs dreamed up by Black Lives Matter. They have no bearing on reality, according to leftists. I get to define my own identity as non-racist, period. Leftism is experiencing what engineers call a failure cascade. They've nullified everything they stand for by claiming that everything they stand for is not valid. Just define yourself as a non-racist and nobody has the right to challenge you. Final, silly claim. Also, a movement isn't a cult. I don't think you realize what a cult is. Actually, young whippersnapper, you don't know what a cult is. A cult is a social group defined by a rigid belief system and a fixation on a personality, object, or goal. Cults don't have to have leaders. There's a climate change cult that's profoundly anti-science. Trump hate is a cult. It has no leader. One of my brothers is in a cult that uses therapy in order to create leftist shock troops. He's been in the cult since 1987. The cult was started by a psychologist and philosophy named Fred Newman. He was mostly interested in having sex with as many young women as he could. Here's Fred on the left. See why he started the cult? My brother was kept isolated from the world for about 2 years. When he was allowed to come home, he had to call the cult every 15 minutes. Just checking in, he'd say. Both of my parents committed suicide in 2013 by refusing to cooperate in their cancer treatments. I wasn't close to either parent, and my mother actually hated me for reasons that I won't get into, but my other brother and I did everything we could to save their lives. It was the right thing to do. They were insane with terror, so they weren't making informed decisions. Hardest year of my life. Meniere's disease is made worse by stress, so I was having constant rotational vertigo attacks as I wrestled with my father and shrugged off the incredible dirty fighting that my mother inflicted on me. But my brother and I joke about it all the time. You'd be shocked. We don't make fun of our parents. We make fun of the end of the world absurdity of it all. And as my brother and I walked in hell for a full year, my cult brother hid in New York, safe. My father died in February and my mother in October. At both funerals, my cult brother tried to start political fights with me. He says race is the most important aspect of a person. I never rose to the bait because I hold him in total contempt. And let me tell you, getting through 2 parental suicides makes you hard as Bethlehem's steel. Stupid ass cult punks don't get to me in the slightest. Nothing does. My cult brother finally lost his marbles and called whenever New York was in COVID-19 apocalypse and started screaming at me like Hitler. He said he had COVID-19 but couldn't be tested because Trump wasn't allowing tests. Wait, if you can't get tested, how do you know you have it? I asked. Silence. It's a mild case, he said. How do you know? You said you can't get tested. The point is that Trump's preventing tests. I asked him if he was near his computer, and he was. He went to the CDC website, and I showed him that testing was entirely up to the individual clinician. Silence. We don't have enough ventilators because of Trump. Debunked that. Silence. Another screamed talking point from the cult script. Altogether, we went through 10 or 15. I debunked them all, so he simply went back to the beginning. Trump isn't allowing tests! So I told him he was right, and he relaxed. As he rang off, he turned into Hitler one last time, telling me he hoped he survived. I didn't tell him that I don't care if he survives. He's been a psycho since 1987, so his fate is a matter of total indifference to me. I always kept my mouth shut, even this last time. My cult brother called my Las Vegas brother, the one who helped me try to save our parents. My Vegas brother came out to me at the age of 60, came out as gay. I told him I'd always known he's gay. That's all we said about it. His revelation changed nothing, except he's now less uptight. He unloaded on my cult brother. Guess what? I'm a gay Republican who loves Donald Trump. What do you have to say about that? My cult brother became a whiny little old man. My gay brother blowtorched him until he hung up. We're done. Our siblings are leftist mental patients. So, I know what cults are. I know what almost everything is. Guess what happens when the cult of Black Lives Matter accuses Trump supporters of being cultists? The universal reaction. What? Coming from you? It's more political suicide. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. Rationality is cultish. Nobody ever believed it would really happen. Well, it has. Let me quote Gregory Peck from the Guns of Navarone. You think that you've been getting away with it all this time, standing by. Well, son, your bystanding days are over. You're in it now, up to your neck. We're in it now, up to our necks, but you need to be happy. This battle determines the outcome of the war. The Army Corps of Engineers is honored to build the wall. The car manufacturers' workers were honored to pitch in to build ventilators. They all said they grew up with stories about their grandparents helping the war effort, and now they got to do it too. So now we have the chance. Why are you afraid? The battle had to be fought, so fight it. And be happy, warriors. Let the other side be grim and humorless. When the troops hit Omaha Beach on D-Day, an officer waded ashore under murderous fire, terrified out of his mind. He took cover behind a German Czech hedgehog beach obstacle. There's a picture of one right here. Built to rip out the bottoms of assault landing craft. 2 Americans were behind another hedgehog next to him. One man raised his voice to be heard over the explosions and machine gun fire. For the last time, you stupid bastard, in this man's army, the canteen is worn on the right side. The officer couldn't stop laughing. His fear evaporated. So wear your canteen on the right side. Make up fruit-selling songs and laugh in the shade as the arrows pour down. Come on, you sons of bitches. You want to live forever?